make no apology for returning to the subject of Syria this week, not because we've got any magical new solutions, but simply because forgetting this humanitarian catastrophe in what was once a thriving country seems just wrong.
That was Gavin Esler on Dateline London, keeping the drumbeat going on Syria. So here are some pictures. Pictures from Yemen. Saudi Arabia has been bombing and starving Yemen for over a year, but don't mention a war unless it has something to do with those naughty Russians and that nasty Assad. But wait, what's this? Do we have some serious questioning of Western policy?
So if the Assad regime is clearly part of the problem, must it be part of the solution? Has Western policy to marginalise, ignore and not negotiate with Assad simply been wrong?
It has been wrong.
Feed me a wet kipper. Western policy is declared wrong on a BBC programme. I'm so excited. They'll be calling it criminal next.
It's been wrong, and I think that people need to acknowledge that. And I think what we suffered from in Syria is a sort of Iraq war hangover.
Normality is restored. You can guess what's coming.
And I think that, unfortunately, history will judge both these decisions harshly, in that I think in sort of fear and reluctance to look like people are intervening and the Western interventionism in the region is something that has been problematic in the past. It has enabled Assad, it has strengthened his hand, and there is a triumvirate of absolutely reprehensible culprits between Hezbollah, Assad and Russia, with the West standing, looking on, that has devastated, until very recently, one of the most thriving, culturally vibrant countries in the Arab world.
No mention of Saudi Arabia, Turkey or Qatar. No mention of the CIA or British Special Forces. There's been intervention by the West since the start of the Civil War. Russia only got involved officially a year ago, and if international law means anything, it was actually invited in by the Syrian government.
And I think I'm very happy that you make no apologies for returning to Aleppo, because I'm really concerned that people are looking at Aleppo the way they would look at kind of starving children in East Africa and say, oh, well, you know, it is what it is, and it happens every once in a while, and, you know, we can't do anything about it.
It's a man-made catastrophe.
It's a man-made catastrophe, and, you know, people will sit and opine and say, well, you know, these are all these kind of, you know, political calculations, and what can you do about it?
يعني البنت حملت بصراحة حملت من بعض. أنا بدي حملت من الجوع. وأصعب واحد هو اللي يموت من الجوع.
Hunger, Yemen's silent killer. Case after case, we see children dying from starvation. This war has been hidden from sight. What we witness is a humanitarian catastrophe.
هذه حالة مجاعة. ويا خوفي تكون هي البداية.
It's to the BBC's credit that they can broadcast a whole half-hour documentary about the situation in Yemen, but where is the wall-to-wall saturation coverage that we get of Syria? We don't get it because there's no need to prepare us for the intervention required for regime change. The Western powers that be want Assad gone. So here he is speaking to the Associated Press news agency.
Bomb is a bomb. What's the difference between different kinds of bombs? All bombs are to kill, but it's about how to use it. When you use armament, use it to defend the civilians. You kill terrorists in order to defend civilians.
Meh. Some bombs make better TV. Just compare the bombing in Syria with that in Yemen. The pictures of the port are not very exciting. Never mind that the ships can wait over 5 months to get in and unload. But those pictures of Aleppo, they're really good for selling a new war. Back to Dateline and Alex Dean, described by the programme as a conservative commentator.
Take away any kind of moral compass, Putin has played a blinder. He has had a great success with very little at risk to start with and very little lost. 2 points from me. The footage that we see of Aleppo, much of which, by the way, is taken by drones, which are changing the nature of reporting from danger zones fundamentally, it reveals a kind of almost lunar landscape, or a kind of World War II Dresden-type landscape. And it is astonishing. I think 250,000 people are still living in that environment.
You wonder where, don't
Yeah,
you? You look
quite.
at it.
So I think the
where.
moral impulse, as per Nesrick's point, is absolute. But the second thing I was going to say was that the spokesman for the Assad regime on BBC last week was saying, we've never attacked our own citizens, we never do that. I mean, just total denial of obvious truth. And the difference between that and the Saddam Hussein regime, when their spokesman got out in front and lied, was that the Hussein regime didn't get away with it, and the Assad regime is.
There should be a rule. Mention the lies of Hussein, mention the lies of Blair.
There is one terrorist in this world that the world needs to be aware of, and his name is Tony Blair, the world's worst terrorist.
And another is David Cameron. September 9 saw a report from the Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Commons debunk the idea of Gaddafi massacring civilians in Benghazi. Yet that was a pretext for trashing Libya and forcing a regime change. Something David Cameron admitted at the time was illegal. He'll probably just walk away.
Right.
Agenda, but I do think that there is huge moral pressure now piling up, and you know, I'm kind of more of a cynic, and I don't think that usually results in anything. But the footage that is coming through from Aleppo, the possibility now, because Assad and the Russians are panicking, the possibility to send in ground troops, potentially 6,000 ground troops into Aleppo in the near term as the Obama presidency goes into its wane, that is going to be, I think, the sort of dividing line between whether somebody actually says, you know what, it's going to be open combat in Aleppo on the ground, it's going to be something tantamount to cleansing.
Let's get ready for open warfare in Aleppo. But don't let's stop selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Libya, Syria. Third time's the charm. Just remember, there is no just war, just wars that make money. Want to get serious about survival? Get the profit motive out of war. Get war out of the economy. And that was Trex News. Exceedingly extinct. Did I do that right?